Y'all, my name is Brandon Rollins. It's Friday night, and I'm out here with two of my buddies, Damion and Keven. We came out here to fish. That's it, just fish. Just three friends, our trucks, our fishing gear. And oh, it's one of those hot Florida nights where the darkness settles over these old back roads and these lakes. You see, y'all, something has gone terribly wrong. Damion, he ain't answering me. Keven, he ain't answering me either. And I'm hurt really, really bad. I can feel myself getting weaker, but I still have my phone. So I call the one man that I know will come looking for me. My dad. When he answers, I just don't have the strength to explain. But I can manage one word. Help. Y'all, that man was 27-year-old Brandon Rollins. And somewhere near Frostproof, Florida, Brandon's father had just received the kind of phone call that no parent ever wants to hear. His son was in trouble. He didn't know exactly what happened. He didn't know what he was about to find. He only knew Brandon needed him. So he did what any dad would do. He went looking. Y'all, what that father was about to drive into would become one of the most horrifying murder cases Polk County, Florida had ever seen. Three friends went fishing on a Friday night. 23-year-old Damion Tillman, 30-year-old Keven Springfield, and 27-year-old Brandon Rollins. And before that night was over, y'all, all three would be dead. Y'all, tonight we're heading into rural Polk County, Florida for the story that became known as the Frostproof 3. Y'all, it was Friday, July the 17th, 2020. Now, if you've never spent much time in this part of Florida, Frostproof isn't the Florida that they put on postcards. You see, this is Polk County. You got orange groves, lakes, cattle, land, two-lane roads, and places where, once that sun goes down, it gets really, really dark. And going fishing at night, there ain't nothing unusual about that around here, y'all. You see, that's what these friends were planning to do. And they had done it plenty of times before. Well, earlier that evening, Damion Tillman stopped at a Dollar General. At that time, it probably didn't mean anything. Y'all, he was just simply a young man stopping at a store before heading out and going fishing. That's what we all do. We stop, we get some cold drinks, we get some snacks, whatever else we might need, maybe a can of dip. But you see, within hours, detectives would be looking at surveillance footage from that store, frame by frame. Because, y'all, Damion wasn't the only person there. You see, a man named Tony T.J. Wiggins was also there. Now, according to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, TJ was standing in line behind Damion and overheard him talking about going fishing with Keven Springfield. Y'all, I really need you to keep that little detail in the back of your mind, because you see, before this investigation was ever over, that ordinary trip into a Dollar General, well, it would become one of the breaks that detectives needed. So Damion left, and he headed toward the fishing area near Lake Streety Road. Brandon Rollins and Keven Springfield, they were also headed out there. Y'all, it was just three friends meeting up for a wonderful night of fishing. And there's nothing complicated about that. Y'all, growing up in the South, in the summertime, that's when we fish. Doesn't matter what kind of fishing you're doing, but that's when we fish. It's just innocent fun. You're not bothering nobody. You're just out in nature, under the moonlight, fishing. I mean, really, how much better could it get? And it was until sometime around 10 p.m. that night. You see, that's when Brandon made that phone call to his daddy. Brandon called his father, and according to accounts of what happened that night, Brandon managed to communicate that he needed help. Y'all, his father didn't sit around waiting for another phone call. Oh, hell no. He did what most dads would do. He went looking for his kid. Now think about that drive. Wow. Your phone rings late at night. It's your child. Y'all, I don't care how old he is. It's your child. And he said he needs help. And you can tell something is clearly wrong. And so now you're driving down dark Polk County roads trying to find your child. You don't know if there was a wreck. You don't know if somebody got hurt fishing. You don't know if there's been some kind of an accident. You just know your son needs you, and he needs you now. Well, eventually Brandon's father reached the fishing area. And whatever he thought he might find, y'all, this wasn't it. Damion Tillman and Keven Springfield were already dead. Now, Brandon was still alive, but y'all, he was so critically wounded. The three men had been brutally attacked. Authorities say they had been beaten and shot multiple times. Now, Brandon's father, he called 911, and emergency help was summoned. Brandon was rushed for medical treatment. But y'all, his injuries, they were just too severe, and he did die. 3 friends had driven out there to fish, and nothing more and nothing less. And now all 3 were dead. And investigators with the Polk County Sheriff's Office had a triple homicide on their hands. So y'all, the detectives, wow, they had a big dilemma. Like, where do you even start with this? Because y'all, this wasn't a murder in the middle of a crowded parking lot. There weren't dozens of witnesses standing around. Y'all, this was a really, really isolated fishing spot. So investigators, they needed to work backward. Where had the victims been? Who had seen them? Who knew where they were going? Who might have followed them? And what happened immediately before they reached that good old fishing hole? Y'all, that's when investigators found their way back to the Dollar General. You see, a receipt helped establish when Damion had been inside of that store. And once detectives had a time, they could pull surveillance video. There was Damion. And there was somebody else. TJ Wiggins. Y'all, investigators said TJ was there with his girlfriend, Mary Whittemore. And according to law enforcement, TJ had heard Damion talking about meeting Keven to go fishing. Now the detectives had something. Somebody outside the 3 victims apparently knew exactly where at least one of them was headed. And you got to remember, this isn't a community fishing hole. Y'all, these are isolated lakes and ponds in the middle of rural Florida, okay? So investigators started digging into good old TJ Wiggins. And what they uncovered, oh my God, it would lead them to 3 different people. TJ Wiggins, his brother, Robert Wiggins, and TJ's girlfriend, Mary Whittemore. Now we get to the part of this story that is almost impossible to understand considering what happened. You see, according to investigators, confrontation involved an accusation over a truck motor. Yeah. Authorities allege TJ Wiggins believed Keven Springfield had stolen a truck engine from him. That's what investigators said was behind the entire confrontation. A damn truck engine. 3 men would lose their lives, and investigators were looking at a dispute involving a piece of machinery. Now, according to the Polk County Sheriff's Office, TJ confronted Keven at the fishing hole. Y'all remember? He was in Dollar General and overheard Damion say where he was going. But y'all, detectives weren't going to be able to build a triple murder case on somebody saying, I think this is what happened. They needed the evidence. They needed physical evidence. They needed statements. They needed the timelines. And they also needed to know whether the stories they were being told matched what they were finding. So investigators searched the property where the suspects had been staying. Now, authorities reported finding firearms and ammunition they considered significant to the investigation, and then investigators started comparing what the suspects were telling them with the evidence. And y'all, whoa, things weren't adding up at all. Now, if y'all are not familiar with Polk County, Florida, let me explain something to you. Sheriff Grady Judd is a rock star, and he does not play at all. And therefore, his deputies, they move quickly. You see, only days after the murders, Sheriff Grady Judd stood before the public and announced the arrest. Tony T.J. Wiggins, William Robert Wiggins, and Mary Whittemore. Authorities alleged T.J. Wiggins was the gunman. Investigators accused Robert Wiggins of being present and assisting afterward. Now, Whittemore, she was also accused in connection with events surrounding the crime and its aftermath. But y'all know how we do things down here. An arrest isn't a conviction. A sheriff standing at a podium doesn't determine guilt, a courtroom does. So while investigators had their theory of what happened that night, y'all, the criminal cases still had to work their way through the justice system. And that process would take years. So I ask y'all, what makes this case different? Well, you know, there's something about the Frostproof 3 that has always bothered me. You see, it's the normalcy of what they were doing. They weren't walking into some dangerous situation looking for trouble. They weren't expecting any confrontation other than maybe a fish or a crazy moccasin or a curious alligator. Because they were just going fishing in Florida in the middle of the night. And think about how many times somebody in Florida has said, "Hey, y'all, how about going fishing tonight?" Man, you grab the rods, throw some stuff in the truck, maybe stop at the store, you meet your buddies, and you head toward the water for a really fun night of just socializing and fishing. You see, that's what makes this case hit so differently. Because there was nothing extraordinary about the beginning of that night. It was completely ordinary right up until it wasn't. Y'all, these are my final thoughts. Like I said, I have spent my entire life fishing. And probably half of that time was fishing at night. When I had a boat, I'd put my boat in just a little before dark. And when I didn't have a boat, I'd just sit on the bank at night. Y'all, there's just something about fishing at night. And you see, it really doesn't matter if you catch anything. It's just so peaceful. No ski boats, no jet skis, just you and the outdoors. You know, but I keep coming back to Brandon, 27 years old and badly wounded. His friends were nearby, and somehow he was still able to get that phone and reach his daddy. And his father came. Now, he couldn't undo what had happened. He couldn't save Damion, and he couldn't save Keven. And ultimately, he couldn't save his son, Brandon. But you know, y'all, when his son called for him, man, Dad came. That just sends chills down my spine. That's what dads do. And there's something else I want us to remember. When a case becomes famous, something really strange happens. Years pass. Documentaries get made, new stories get written. People do remember the accused. They remember Grady Judd, the sheriff in this case. And they remember the crime scene. But y'all, sometimes the victims slowly become nothing more than names underneath an old photograph. Y'all, we ain't gonna do that here. Their names were Damion Tillman, Keven Springfield, Brandon Rollins. Remember that, y'all. Remember these people. These 3 boys died for absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, they became known as the Frostproof 3. But before that name ever existed, they were 3 great friends. And 3 sons. 3 men who went fishing on a Friday night and should have come home. Y'all, I'm DJ. This is DJ Southern Storytelling. Y'all tell me what you think down in the comments. Be nice. Keep it respectful. Keep speculation labeled as speculation. And remember that real families are attached to every name in this story, and they read these. They listen to them. Real families listen to these stories. Y'all, around here, we can tell a powerful story without changing the facts. And that's exactly how we're going to keep it. Y'all, I'm out. My name's DJ. We'll see you the next time. Peace.